Welcome to the 21 Convention, Orlando, Florida, 2017. I'm Socrates for 21 Radio. Today I have with me Tanner Guzy of Masculine Style and George Bruno with Gray Bailey. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks.
Hey,
Thank you.
To be really honest, I'm going to try to take a back seat on this. I know we have two guys that we had coming in talking about style, the importance of it, the fashion world, everything about art, aesthetics, as far as putting on clothing and expressing your frame. You two need to get together. I want to make sure you guys can actually have the conversations you want rather than my poor interjection. So a lot of that introduction, and let's take it away from there.
Okay.
Great.
So I've been wanting to ask you ever since I heard your presentation yesterday. How do you help men understand not just like face shape and other things, but even kind of the way that, like the difference between a goatee versus a shorter beard versus a longer beard, or kind of what the social implications of those different things are when it comes to the grooming? How do you have those conversations with them?
Well, it's interesting. My channel, Gray Bailey on YouTube, was formed because people were asking me questions, the same questions, over and over and over for years. So what I did was I started just putting together videos that were answering questions. I did not intend them to get popular. If I had 500 subscribers, that would have been fine with me. I did not expect it to be income. I did not expect it to be such a huge part of my life. And then all of a sudden it took off. Just took off. And now people are coming from 7 countries and 17 states to sit in my chair, celebrities, broadcasters, sports stars. And when it comes to facial hair, I always ask people, what are your goals? Let's start with the end in mind. Let's see, what do you want to accomplish? Are you in the financial field? If you are, then you can't look like somebody from Duck Dynasty. And nothing against Duck Dynasty, because that works for them.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
It works perfect for them. So I know a friend of mine, Eric Banholtz, who started Beard Brand.
I'm friends with Eric as well.
Okay,
Great guy.
okay,
Love Eric.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So his whole thing is, change the way society views beards.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with that. And I say that you need to just start with the end. What do you want to accomplish? What is your beard goal? So when a guy sits in my chair, what I want to do is I want him to have the best beard that his face can handle.
Right.
Number one. Number two, what industry is he in? What kind of relationships is he in? And I grew a beard down to my belt buckle over a 2-year period. And it was kind of a social experiment. It was a bucket listy kind of thing. I mean, it's, I want to go skydiving. I want to see the Grand Canyon. I want to hang glide. And I wanted to grow a huge beard, just monstrous beard. And unfortunately, I didn't decide to do that until my hair turned white. So just that alone has social implications, a big white beard. Mm-hmm. When I was younger, my hair was black. I was like some of these young men that you see at the conference. It would have been cool to have a big, giant black beard, but I procrastinated and did it when it turned white. So for me, I have logged all of the social implications of facial hair. And that's a lot of what the channel turned into, was what I just call blogservations about society's response to me and people's response to me in everyday life, from just neighbors to women to family to at work to trying to close deals to closing deals, going to court for custody issues, with I'll never forget my ex-wife telling me once, you really need to take that beard off because you're going to look like Satan in court. And I'm like, and I'll never forget. And it was a separate issue other than custody. But I'm thinking, do you really think I'm going to be judged by the judge for my facial hair? And the answer is yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I start with people's beard goals, grooming goals, and then work my way backward. What do they want to accomplish? I was telling Socrates before I had a guy that I did a consult with recently, very soft features, literally with no facial hair, and I showed you the picture. He looked like he was 14. we went through some steps over a period of a couple weeks through the consult that I offer via Skype and phone. And now he looks like a professional wrestler now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And he's getting the rewards of
Right.
having that look as well.
Well, and the detail led to just a standard. I don't want to say, you look at it and go, he had standing with this beard. You sit down and go, it's intentional, it looks natural, but you look at it and go, it was a transformational appearance, immediate, visual.
Totally transformation. That's why I love before and afters.
Right.
Yeah.
On any level,
Right.
in any industry, just give me remodeling, hair, beards, clothing,
the
whatever.
change.
Before and afters are amazing.
Yeah. Okay, so I take the same approach when it comes to style because, and I'm sure that you deal with this the same way, where most people, most men especially now, when they look at the clothing that they put on or the way that they cut their hair or anything, it's one, reactive as opposed to proactive, or two, it's just a tactical approach as opposed to a strategic approach. They don't think about the end goal or, what is it that I'm trying to communicate or trying to accomplish. It's just, does this look good or does it not look good? Or this is the same thing I've had since I was a little boy, so I'm going to continue to wear my hair or wear my clothing the same way. Why do you think we're at the point where for men appearance is passive, reactive, and unintentional as opposed to at other points? I mean, you can't tell me a Viking wasn't intentional about his beard. So why is it that we now aren't that way about our facial hair and our style and everything else? Why do you think that is?
I think men in their heart of hearts know what masculine style is, but it's being drowned out by other voices. Why do you think Game of Thrones is so huge? I get more. I can't even tell you if it wasn't for who was it? Johnny Soprano was talking about The Sopranos. It made like chubby guys that are balding a little bit real popular, and I was like, Game of Thrones made my industry so. And
I saw that with Mad Men 5 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
just, it worked really well for me. Everybody wants to look like a damn Viking.
Well, it's shorthand culturally.
Right.
Yeah, it's cultural shorthand.
Totally. So I think the media and TV has a big effect. I find when people show me pictures of what they want, hair and beard, they're showing me pictures of Game of Thrones, they're showing me pictures of Sons of Anarchy, and I'm finding a resurgence in masculinity. No one's telling me, make me look softer.
Right.
Yeah.
Make me look like less of a man. I'm getting, as a matter of fact, there's a market, I think, for the guys that are not blessed with angular, traditionally masculine features. They're coming to me saying, I need a makeover and I want to look a little more, because in the natural pecking order of things, women, when it comes to single guys, women choose a man that looks like he can protect.
Right.
He might have bullets look like Yosemite Sam covered with guns and firearms, but he's got to look like a man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I find that to be comforting that that's coming back. And I'm working with like little short chubby attorneys that look like they're 16 years old who are trying to grow a goatee and trying to have a little bit of swagger and kind of jack up their game a little bit. And it's just, there's such a market for it out there, and they're not getting it from the media.
Right.
They're not getting it from TV shows. We've redefined everything from what the damn family is to what manhood is.
Well, and especially because when you talk about the media, I mean, the shows that you're referencing that they are pulling it from, historical or fantastical things like Game of Thrones, or it's the anti-heroes and the rebels out of Sons of Anarchy or other things. But when you look at kind of what is being I highly doubt that you have very many men who come to you with a picture of somebody from like a romantic comedy that is kind of what women are projecting is this is what the ideal man is, but it's what we see is like raw masculinity, and I want to look like that guy.
Yeah.
I don't want to look like what
Yeah.
she wants me to look like. I want to look like that guy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'll say this, being a great offender, you learn through trauma, and part of it is you delay what you don't know, not comfortable with. The secondary is you're forced to, and then you make the mistakes. I clearly, having listened to both you yesterday, or the day before yesterday, was in a position where I was tired, wasn't thinking. I had the information, but if you're not used to utilizing it, you make the mistake. The second, and I think this is terribly important being an architect, is I was trained to teach, or I was trained and taught a design language. So you're trained in it. I have no way to communicate other than through memes or through images or cultural shorthand what do I mean. And so particularly with Tanner, what I found terribly impressive is that you broke it down into very simplistic approaches that you say, hey, these are the style types, the archetypes, and you can make a pattern of it. And all of a sudden I'm looking at my own clothing going, oh, I can point to it and I can name it, and you can then have a conversation. And I found that to be terribly important. Particularly, even the conversation I had literally coming here was explicitly about that. So
That's
I
awesome.
sat that down, and knowing that I was going to have a chance to have the two of you together to be able to discuss that, I think it's terribly important. And to sit down and say, hey, as users of this organization, look, even the speakers are reflective looking, that we're learning from each other, and there's a lot we can learn. And you would sit down and say, for a man's conference, for guys talking about man, fashion is something terribly important because you're expressing yourself.
It's your brand.
That friend, yeah, absolutely.
It's your brand.
Yeah, absolutely. So what would be some things where you say starting point for somebody, on the receiving end of a video watching this, that you would sit down and say, what are things to do, when, and how? What would be the best way to kind of start that approach?
I would say take the same approach that George has already talked about, where you figure out what the end goal is. Rather than being reactive in, I'm going to go to the store and I'm going to see what speaks to me or what I like, or just kind of piecing things together, you develop an idea of what the end goal looks like. And part of that is very introspective, because you need to know not only what you want to look like, but what kind of man you actually want to be,
right.
how you want to interact with the world, what the best version of you is. It's almost like a vision board,
Right,
and you put up Lamborghinis and hot girls and like this luxury porn stuff. But I think what a lot of men don't realize is, as you go through this visualization, like, what does that man look like?
Right.
What's his grooming like? What is his clothing like? What is his physique? What's his body language? What are all these other things? And then if you can get an idea of what that is, then you can start progressively working towards that. Because if the ideal version for you is somebody who embraces color and draws a little bit more attention, and is somebody who is comfortable with that, then wearing a Don Draper gray suit tomorrow is totally antithetical to what your main goal is. And so you have to, it doesn't matter if like you watch Mad Men and you're like, this is great, I love the great. It doesn't matter if it doesn't actually work with who you are and what your end game is. So you have to start with the goal in sight and then work backwards from there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I thought it was interesting too. I was telling George earlier, it was the first time in my life I actually used a comb on my beard. I can use a bar of soap on my head. I do the same thing with facial feature. I'm not, for example, in Jack Donovan's talk, he literally talked about honoring yourself. I haven't been doing it. I have been diminishing myself for other purposes and range, and you have to start with yourself. So, as a speaker, I'm finding you guys, what you're bringing to the table, terribly important, and, how to best to kind of put all that together.
Well, what do you see when you see yourself in the mirror every day? Or, you're walking by a building downtown and it's got, these windows and you catch your reflection. Do you see a man who is taking action and actually doing things?
Right.
Or you see somebody who's shrunken in on himself and looks average and looks dejected and looks like especially because as we go through these self-improvements, if we don't get visual confirmation and feedback, then a lot of times it doesn't feel like we're actually making those improvements. You may be better with women. You may be better as a father. You may be better asserting yourself with your boss. Your finances may be totally turned around. But if you don't actually see a difference, then a lot of times those nagging doubts or those times where, because progression is not linear. It's up and down and everything.
Right.
And so when you get into those valleys, you can feel like you haven't made any progress at all. But if you can see visual evidence of your progress, then it helps you get through those valleys back up to different peaks.
And what I found remarkable is this is something you can do immediately. There's immediate results. My mistake was yesterday was, I accepted comfort, and then not only did I accept comfort, I knew my mistake, and what did I do? Gave other reasons for getting it, rather than stepping out and saying you made an error, readdressing that immediately and taking over. And so and I've said it in my own talk, you learn through trauma, and unless you've experienced that trauma, you won't truly, honestly change. And so, I'm sitting there, amongst two, I'm a sinner amongst, confessing my sins amongst people who already know. So I thank you both very much for both of that, and knowing that, part of that vulnerability is that if I, as a speaker, can admit that, I know these guys behind the cameras can. that's how you start, and it's the big first step. So,
I got a beard question for you.
Yeah.
So I go through different phases. I'm fickle with my hair and my beard. Like I can last maybe like 6 months. It's like I want to do something totally different. And for a long time, I've wanted to grow a beard out a little bit longer. But I get to the point where it gets disproportionately weighted, where it gets a little bit longer underneath my chin on the right side. And so when I see it, it drives me crazy. But then if I try and trim it, then I feel like I'm negating any actual growth or any actual progress. So a few years ago, I tried growing my hair out really long, like the man bun and all that kind of stuff. And what I learned is that you just kind of have to go through this phase where you embrace the suck. Like you really can't do anything that makes it look good. You can wear hats a lot, or you can just kind of deal with it. Is that the same thing with the beard?
I tell guys, when I ask them, what is your beard goal? And we'll go through my favorite Instagram site called Beard for All, which is the largest visual beard database on earth. And we just scroll through beards. And I've been featured on there probably 20 times. It's interesting. Throughout the different phases of my beard. So they have taken, whoever is the administrator of the channel has taken a liking to me. And I say, find your beard goal. And a guy will say, I want to look like this. Or when my beard was big, everyone would point to me. You are my beard goal. And I'm like, well, then what are you doing here?
You are goals.
Why are you here? You can't trim your way to a big beard. So that goes into the embrace the suck. You got to have a medium beard before you have a big beard. It has to be medium first. You have to go through the sucky stage or the medium stage. You can't just and realize whatever shape you put into it early on just becomes the shape later on. Now, I started out wanting a boxier, squarer beard.
Right.
I regretted that because when it was down to my belly, literally, if you have a beard that big, you don't want it flat on the bottom. You want it coming to, you want it wizardly. I want to be able to, when I stroke my beard, go right down to a point. But I find myself having to like brush it out and kind of maintain the boxiness. But that was 22 months too late. I could trim a pointed shape into it, but it wouldn't look natural.
Right.
I wanted something more natural.
Pristine,
Yeah, so when you trim your beard like this at 6 months, in 9 months, it'll be here. 12 months, it'll be, so whatever you do to you think everything's got kind of a delayed reaction. You're planting seeds for something later, and I've sent guys away for 3 months. I'm the referral king. I'm like, look, I don't think I can help you. Let me give you the name and number of somebody who I think can. Or, people are, I have fellow stylists that would say, you're sending business away. I'm like, well, it's because I give a damn. I don't want to trim his beard if he wants a long beard.
Yeah.
I'll see him in, January. That's fine. I'm cool with that. That's okay. So I think you had mentioned tactical versus strategy. Strategy is your goal. Tactics are what you do, the steps you take to get to your strategy. And everyone's so tactically oriented. They're just stringing together a bunch of tactics, thinking it's going to bring them to their goal.
It's a whole other beard,
Yeah.
the tactical beard.
Yeah. So it's just I just find that people need to have a goal. Like one of the things that I did was I found this guy. What I did, like when my hair turned white, fully white, I Googled big gray beard and just looked at pictures. And I was scrolling through Google Images, and I'm like, that's the beard that I want. So I did a screenshot, and I made it the wallpaper on my phone. So every time I got a text or anything on my phone, every time I turned the phone on, there was that goal. It helped me kind of stay on target. I never, ever forget. It wouldn't let me forget what my goal was. And it just made it easier for me. And then when I reached the goal, I thought, you know what, I think I want to do another 2 or 3 inches. So I just did that. Let me add this too. Okay. When it comes to beards are like hair. There's cowlicks in your face.
Yeah.
And so many guys might say, well, my hair seems to be growing faster on this side of my face than this side. I'm like, no, it's not. It's growing in a different direction and sticking out more, right. And you think it's growing faster. So what they will do is they'll take the clippers, usually after 11 p.m., after a couple beers, and what the fuck, I can do it. The one-dimensional mirror thing. And I don't care if you have three, if you're surrounded by 3 mirrors, you can't do your own damn beard. You can't do it.
Okay.
Can't do it.
Good to know.
Because you got one dominant hand, and then you got one duh hand, and some people have 2 duh hands. So here's the guy. On this side of my face, I got this cowlick where this hair grows up.
Okay.
Okay? It needed to get a foot long before it stopped sticking up.
Wow.
And then gravity just
finally pulls
brought
it
it down. It was beautiful. I would just shake it in the wind.
But what do you do during that foot?
Embrace the suck.
Seriously?
Embrace it.
Oh, man.
Or use product or blow dry. You can make hair go in any direction you want if
Right.
you blow dry it,
Right.
and then hit it with the cool shot button. It'll do anything you want.
Okay.
Talk about that because you brought that up. Because I actually went home, looked at my partner's one, and I'm like, we're going to get better. And then not only that, you said get your own. Don't share.
Don't use the purple hair dryer.
Yeah, bingo. Can you go over that for the people looking at the radio that may not have actually seen your speech and actually go to it and kind of find the link below type thing?
Guys, get your own products. Okay, get a manly shampoo. And don't wash your beard with Irish Spring.
plug
Nothing
Beard
against
Brand,
Irish
right?
Spring, but Beard Brand is a great place to start. Beard washes are mild. They're not stripping away natural oils. That's a good thing because most guys work so hard at this glorious thing on their face, and then they do so much damage with their wife or girlfriend's product, and they come out smelling like a flower. Get your own product, get your own tools, and be happy with it. But don't. But then there's a fine line too. I mean, I know guys that are taking round brushes and blow drying the ends and all this stuff, and I'm like, okay, now you just, to me, it's my opinion. Mm-hmm. That's taking it too far.
Right.
I mean, my goal is to get out of the bathroom as fast as I can in the morning. Mm-hmm. If my girlfriend, partner, or wife wants to take 20 minutes. I remember, here's a story. Years ago, I'm dating a chick, beautiful girl, always take forever in the bathroom. She gave me the best answer, and I go, I used to say if women didn't spend so much time in the bathroom, we'd never check the oil in our cars. Right? A woman's primping. I'm like,
what am I going to do?
How much longer? She's like, 15 minutes. I'm like, all right. So I open up the hood and I'm checking the oil, And I'm thinking if I ever dated a woman who didn't wear makeup, my engine would seize, Yeah. So I said to her, I go, why do you take so long? Because wherever we went, I hear blow dryers, and I'm like, what are you, I'm talking through the door. What are you doing in there? And I remember her opening up the door. I'm like, now I see what you're doing in there. That's cool. I don't mind it when she does that. But her answer was, she says, I want to keep you coming back. I'm like, damn, that is the best damn answer. So I never complained if a woman takes too long to groom herself, to pretty herself up.
Well, and I love the idea of the fact that you've drawn a line, and for you, it's at this point where you're using a brush and trying to get everything. Because I think while we value that in women, and one of the reasons why we value that so much in women is because when it comes to the sexual marketplace and dating and everything else, beauty is a huge component for what attracts us to women. And obviously how we are physically attractive or anything else is big, but it's secondary or tertiary. Mm-hmm. And I think for most men, what they do is they think that it doesn't matter at all, which takes it too far. Mm-hmm. And they do that for fear of turning into the metrosexual or the primper or somebody else who conflates that as a primary value in the attractiveness of men. And so what we really want to do is be able to acknowledge that it matters, and it demonstrates that we pay attention to detail and that we're aware of things, but it's not so important that it supersedes other things, like our ability to get things done or our ability, because you see that with clothing all the time where the guy who's too perfect, it doesn't look good, because again, it's conflating that value of attractiveness as making it primary as opposed to secondary or tertiary. And so you want it to be properly within the hierarchy rather than totally thrown out the window.
Completely.
Yeah.
I think being right in the middle is nice. It's just one of those things. I think there's so many voices out there and there's so much noise that is intercepting the expression of manhood. Mm-hmm. and the manhood signals. We're only getting 2 bars. You know what I mean? When it comes to what society is, I want a full damn signal, man.
Yeah, exactly.
I want a full damn signal. Like I got into a big argument with a guy, and and I actually want to work this argument online, and just like I want to start. What I want to do is I want to do the professional wrestling version of an Instagram fight. You know,
all the promotional elements to it.
Totally. And then I want to do a video where I'm bad mouthing him, and then he kind of shows up in the back, and he just sits there and like watches me, and then I turn around, and I'm like, oh, you know, like, and I'm like, oh, you know. But he's like an icon in the hair and beard industry, and he challenged me publicly. Because I'm not into glitter beards.
Oh yeah,
I'm like fuck the glitter.
I was going to ask you beard jewelry.
Yeah, I'm like fuck that. No, fuck that. Yeah. So basically, what I did was I started posting pictures. Like I
saw this.
I photoshopped a bunch of tampons on my face, and I'm like the tampon beard. You know, just to like take it. Let's take things to their extreme. All right, and then I posted a picture of me where I photoshopped nuts and bolts. Like I'm like, now this is a fucking manly beard, nuts and bolts. And then I said, you might think that I'm nuts, but you're only half right. You know, I'm nuts and bolts. So, and that was kind of like rather than like, oh yeah, you know, and going back and forth, I just said, fuck it, I'll post a tampon beard. You know, and some people were offended. Most people are like, we fucking... Like, it just made sense. It proved my anti-fucking glitter beard argument.
Well, it's another way to subvert traditional masculinity. It's a way to say, this is a physical and aesthetic manifestation of masculinity, and we're going to turn it into something that's demonstrative of beauty or femininity or something else. And so it's another way to take them... And it takes the ironic beard... and takes it one step further, where masculinity is a big joke. And that's what's so frustrating about it, is it's not.
I go to bike nights. I'm a motorcyclist. I love motorcycles. And I go to bike nights, and I'll see like doctors, lawyers, and chiropractors wearing like leather chaps that have like, you can tell they bought them like the day before. And they walk around.
The leather's not broken yet.
They'll walk around, and then I'll see like some like motherfucker with a beard like yours, and he's wearing a fucking kilt. He's got tattoos and scars and shit like that, you know. And I'm like, yeah, you know. But I could tell the guys who were just like the weekend warriors, are like, I want to be a man for a weekend.
I'm gonna LARP at being a man.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, cosplay.
So, and I'm thinking, you know what? You look like the fucking Village People, douchebag. You know what I mean? It's like you don't. Like, seriously, don't, like, if you're a pencil pusher and sitting at a fucking desk all week long, and then go and buy a Harley and then, like, leather chaps, that's not going to make you any more of a man. No. How about hit the fucking gym?
Right.
And raise the T level a little bit, okay?
Yep.
Or sit in my chair and let me just slap the shit out of you for a little bit.
and then hot towel you.
And then I'll fucking, you know, put a hot towel on your face and melt your skin off. No, I'm just so tired of this whole... we're 30 to 40 years into discover your feminine side bullshit, and I don't like that. Okay, I got nothing against big fat lesbians, okay? But I heard a comedian, and this is not my line, I heard a comedian say, I finally discovered my feminine side, and it's a big fat lesbian. And...
Just we'll take an interrupt this from Okay, I got it.
So, but I don't, fuck the feminine side. We're made male and female for a fucking reason. I don't have to, like, listen, I'm single now, so I have to cook. Okay? I have to fucking cook. All right? If I ever get married again, first of all, there are people who will have heart attacks when they find out that I get married, if that ever happens again, after what I went through. But, you know, if something gets a rip in it, I gotta sew it.
Right.
Like the things that are traditionally feminine, I gotta do just to, on a day, I gotta cook, I gotta sew, you know what I mean? I don't care, I'll do it.
It's utility.
It's utility, exactly, but I'm not running around, and it's interesting too. We were talking about this the first night that I got here. I don't have to be feminine. And, boy, we're gonna get into some...
No, do it. It's a private channel. You totally get into it. Go as far as you're comfortable as going.
All right. I was getting, like I had talked about the effect of feminism on like gay dudes in America. America is, and when I say gay, I don't mean it in a discriminatory sense. I say America's the fucking gayest country I've ever known. It's the only country where gay guys act feminine. In other countries, I can't tell. I can go to a fucking place in America anywhere and tell you who the gay guys
You know
are.
Jack Donovan's gay.
I didn't know that.
No, I was not going to throw that out there. I was not, because I didn't know. And absolutely,
He's out about it. Like, it's,
I wasn't sure, but you just sit down and go. The guy
Excuse me while I jump out the fucking window?
No, precisely. Yeah, you look at that and the manifestation that you just, and he's gay, and you're just like, bravo. And it was interesting to hear him talk about, women and feminism and our roles, knowing his orientation, and you're going, holy crap. And you still look at it and he's still talking masculinity.
Yeah.
With none of the feminine nature of any of that.
That's the thing. You don't have to discover your feminine side. It's not necessary. You're a fucking man. And people say, well, what does that mean? And I'm like, listen, it's like pornography. I know it when I see it.
Right.
I shouldn't need to explain it.
Well, and what's so sad is then all of a sudden that becomes conflated with being anti-femininity.
Yeah.
Right. But what's so I'm very happily married. We've been married for 6.5 years. We've got 3 kids. We function in a very traditional marriage.
Yeah.
And the fact that I can focus on being masculine and double down on my strengths, and my wife can focus and double down on her strengths of being feminine, means that my children get to be raised in a full and complete family and get to derive the benefits of masculinity and femininity, as opposed to like both of us trying to negate that and somehow become androgynous, or one being the victim or the enemy of the other. It's like they're equally important, but they're not equally important in me.
Yeah.
And that's this conflation of the individual versus the family or anything else, or I am pro-masculinity for me or for us as men, therefore obviously I'm anti-feminine. It's like,
Right.
Of course I'm not anti-femininity. It's ridiculous.
Did you have that, or did you have that on your slide?
I absolutely had it on my slide.
That was brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was so brilliant. I mean, I wrote that down and put it like 20 exclamation marks after that.
Well, and you have to learn to manage that. And in our natural state, femininity and masculinity are compatible. They're supposed to be.
So compatible.
Because they have to be for a toast to work.
We need both.
Society's gotten in the way
both.
of that. Society's gotten in the way of that. Culture and what we allow in. So absolutely.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's times where a single woman has to, quote unquote, man up because maybe she has a deadbeat husband or boyfriend that gave her a child.
And she's got to fill the void.
But no one
That's
says...
not ideal.
You're absolutely right.
But no one
You're
says to
absolutely
her,
right.
oh, you're being too masculine or
Right.
you're being too much... Hell no.
And we don't stop preaching the ideal just because there are exceptions in which other people have to fill the void.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
Just
so
because
true.
we can't rise up to the ideal 100% of the time, everybody equally, doesn't mean that we stop preaching the ideal. Yeah.
I believe that. Yeah. So going back to beards and masculine style, everyone has to realize that their beard and facial hair and their look and their hair is going to have an impact. It's going to elicit a response.
And it's not a neutral response. It's
No.
either working against you or it's working for you.
Absolutely.
But there's no neutrality in it.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I had a guy once sit in my chair. The guys with tattoos up their necks? All right, I'm not one of those. I have a few like nice tattoos, shoulder, but the guy, that's like kind of like in your face, okay? Big beard, tattoos up the neck, had a couple things on his face. I didn't want to ask him how many people he killed
Right.
Yes,
to get
teardrop,
those
yeah,
little,
yeah.
those little score marks there. And I said, so what do you do for a living? He goes, I'm a bank manager. I'm like, son of a bitch! There I go, prejudging people again. I'm like, motherfucker. And I'm like, damn it. I'm like, how, and he and I got to know each other really well. He'd come in once a month for a haircut and beard trim, and I would say, I love the question, how's that working for you? To me, that's like, that's the question of the past 2 decades. How's that working for you? Because people will either support what they do or say or think, or it will make them or reveal the asshole within. There's a title of a new book. Find your inner asshole. But how's it work? And he says, he goes, at first people were taken back by it. I said, I know I was.
Right.
I mean, like if you told me that you were the head of like the local friggin' Hells Angels,
Right.
I would have believed you.
Right.
But he's a bank manager, and but after talking to him, he's kind of a gentle soul. And his tattoos were more artistic. It wasn't like all fucking skulls and like blood dripping and 666 and all this shit. It was like cool stuff. And I'm like, all right, okay, I kind of get it now. And there's people that embrace this dude. And I said yesterday, dress like the people you want to attract. You know what? Tattooed motherfuckers go to banks too.
Right.
And you know what? His following is sick at this bank.
Oh, I bet.
I mean, the people that walk in there are not just like little old ladies with money in purses. I mean, he has like all like the record store owners, all like the tattoo
He's
guys.
totally marketing to that demographic.
Yeah, I was about to say.
100%.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
It's either
and
that
it
or-
works for them.
Right.
It was either that or whose bank are you running?
Yeah, right.
If it's the hand or the triad, you're like, okay, I
Yes,
get that.
yes.
But so what's so interesting about that, though, is that you had the opportunity to get past the initial impression because of the conversation. And for us, we will try and say, well, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. It's like, that's ridiculous. Because we always have to try and assess and threat assess. And like, if we weren't doing pattern recognition within our brains, they would explode. We have to take these mental shortcuts. But real maturity is being able to say, okay, I've made an assessment based on this information. And then as I get new information, it can either confirm or supersede what that previous information was. But for him, that image is still there. And if he doesn't get the opportunity to tell a deeper story than Mr. Prison Gang Tattoo, then that's the only story that he's told.
Prison
right?
gang tattoo. Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
But because you guys had more time, then he was able to give you more depth. And
Yeah.
then that's where it actually ends up working out, because rather than being a one-dimensional man, it actually shows multiple dimensions and how these different components of who he is can work congruently together into something else. And so that's where, even if you were to leverage that with his style, where he takes the tattoos and everything else, and then maybe he's got a very well manicured beard. So you've got kind of this rugged, this rebellious component with something that's traditional and disciplined and evocative, and then he's wearing a classic suit. And all of a sudden, it's a multi-dimensional story that's being told, as opposed to if he shows up with, dark jeans, motorcycle boots, a chain wallet, and a wife beater, then it just tells that one particular component. And so leveraging all of these different things, your grooming, your style, your tattoos, anything else, and using all of those in conjunction with each other is a really, really effective way to be able to not just get people through one aspect of their assumptions of what the cover of your book is, but be able to tell something that's a little broader.
And can you imagine if they were dealing with crypto technology as far as the currency, any of that stuff, whether it's Bitcoin, I'm a Bitcoin banker or a Bitcoin hedge fund manager, you're like, okay, that completely talks to modernity
It makes
as
sense.
opposed to a traditional banking with pillars and column and
totally
classes.
makes sense.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So.
Yep. So it really is. It's that ability to think proactively and then use those different things in contrast or in congruence with each other. Because I think a lot of times we do. We just think that I like this one style. I mean, so going back to like the Game of Thrones example, I love that one of the things that's limiting about that show is you get guys who come in and say, I want my hair and my beard to be like this. I don't have clients who say I want to dress like that.
Yeah.
Because we understand that it's like you can't throw on fur coats.
Yeah.
But how do you take those principles of something and then kind of convert that into a modern format? And one of the ways to do that is through hair and grooming. And then you can talk about other things or express other things through your style, through your body language, tattoos, or whether or not you have them. All those other variables that work together, as opposed to everything having to be the exact same story, straight up and down the middle.
I was reading something that I'm a big fan of preppers and EDC and all that kind of, and I watched the video the other day on the concept of the gray man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't be the guy with the
Standing out.
the Nike shirt on.
Yep.
You know what I mean? A killer. If he's holding 20 people hostage, the guy who doesn't have any super outstanding, memorable features will probably live, or stands a better chance of living. Like you with a Nike shirt, get over here.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Something that
yeah,
draws attention.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I think for day-to-day stuff, I think some people think that way, and increasingly so in society. I think that could be a good thing. But the purposeful way, dressing and grooming with the end in mind is so important. I mean, if you're, we just had a tragedy in Las Vegas
Right.
overnight.
Right. Yep.
Okay, cowboy hats. I mean, it was Jason Aldean and something, that type of thing. And I'm still trying to make sense of that.
Yeah, it's too early to know.
You know,
anything.
I mean, it just, you know, we know very little. But I'm thinking how we look creates winners and creates victims.
Right.
You know what I mean? So how you dress can invite trouble,
Right.
or it can repel trouble.
Right.
You know?
But it's not like you can say, and I know that this is not what you're saying, but it's not like you can say that somehow those people were responsible for being shot because they wore cowboy hats or anything
Right,
to that
right,
effect. We're
right.
not going there at all. And at the same time, you have to be able to look at the consequences. And the prepper community is such an interesting one because a lot of times you have guys who can take it to such an extreme that they don't thrive until the world ends.
Right.
And if
Right.
the world never ends,
and they're constantly
then you
waiting
never
for
get
it.
to thrive.
And honestly, that's been one of my criticisms on
Right,
that
and you
they're
can do the
constantly
same
looking
thing
for
with the
it.
gray man concept or with anything else aesthetically,
Yeah.
where it's like, yes, in that one situation, in that one environment, the consequences of standing out versus blending in are very drastically different. But for 99.9% of the rest of your life, maybe for a lot of men, the consequences of blending in versus standing out are more negative than positive or something. And it's taking that proactive approach, because I'm not going to give a prescriptive answer and say the only way to dress well and the only way to leverage your appearance to get ahead in life is to stand out.
Right,
Because it's
right.
not.
No, you're
there are
absolutely
plenty of men who are
Context.
much better served by blending in. And that may be from a tactical, like a physically tactical dangerous perspective, or it may just be that you don't want to be the CEO. You don't want to be the entrepreneur. You don't want to shake the boat. You just want to be able to just do your thing and just stay under the radar, you know? And so for men like that, it does you no good to dress up and stand out in another way. But to be able to say that this prescription is a one size fits all in our industry, this is the only answer that works. And you have to be able to look at negative consequences, positive consequences, weigh those against each other, and then make the right decision about what action you're going to pursue going forward.
Yeah, I think context is everything. Remember Dress for Success. I mean, that I don't know what edition they're in now, but I remember when it first came. Actually, when it first came out, I was just starting to be interested in style. And lapels and ties were really wide. That's how far back I go with
we're
that
back
whole
there.
thing.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
damn it, I got rid of all those
I
wide
know,
ties.
long time, right?
Like crap. But it's interesting. Like you see certain things go in style. Like for instance, camo. Camo is fucking military.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, how can that be style? You know what I mean? Like, I wonder, like, how can camo be style? And the EDC and prepper community, they got the cargo pants that are filled with like every fucking survival tool in the world, and like they're like fucking MacGyver, like every little crevice and everything in their
Batman belt.
the
The
utility belt, right?
Exactly.
Exactly. And I'm finding that sometimes those things become styles, and I've always like stayed away from super trendy shit, like just get away from it. Like, was it this past summer? Nordstrom's had ripped jeans with fake mud on them.
Oh yeah, I remember
like
that.
what the fuck?
Yeah.
And they were like $400.
Right.
Yep.
But within the right tribe, within the right context,
a whole different story.
Wearing something like that to signal status or relevance or something else can actually be to your advantage. Now, to the majority of men, absolutely not. It's a big joke. I fall into that group. We fall into that group.
Yeah.
But for the right men, within the right context, those pants may be a good purchase.
Well, I was working at a place where right across the hall, I was working in a damn mall, and that's one of my favorite lines is I work in a damn mall. I don't work in it anymore. Is it religion? True Religion?
True Religion. Yeah.
$400 jeans. I'm like, and I just went to look at the $400 jeans. I said, I'm thinking to myself, these things like better make me damn dinner or something. I mean, and I'm looking at $400 jeans, and I'm like, and it was almost like, do you remember the Four Eyes glasses commercial where the salesman would say to the person, well, these glasses talk French. Remember that commercial? And I'm like, do these fucking jeans talk French? Like,
that's great.
$400 for, I'm like.
Now, I'll be honest. I kind of felt the same way, style and everything else. I walked into a store, and there was an area, and they had it behind glass. It was a museum piece, and it was color and everything else, and it just sort of drew my eye. And in all honesty, I went to steal ideas architecturally.
Right.
And so I go over it, and I'm looking at this shirt, and it was I saw it 50 feet away. as I keep coming up to it, there's more and more detail, more and more detail. This was a $2,000 shirt. And I looked at that and I got it. You know, if I had the money, and you look at it and go, if this was going to be a suit, and you look at it, and the sales clerk was phenomenal. Realized I was studying it and said, come here, let me open it up. Open up, turn the sleeves. The detailing was impeccable. And you look at it and go, who is the designer? They told me, and they go, the rest of their collection's over here. I've been a fan ever since.
Yeah.
And so the shirts that I'm wearing came from their line, and you know it, and you sit down and go, I'm still not getting it right, but I got it, and it was a matter of expression. I treated it like a suit.
Right.
You know, and I said, I don't have the money, but I'm like, that's going the direction I want it to go.
Well, it's all about where you see that value.
Correct.
I've worked in the industry for a few years. I worked for a custom suit company, and we did suits from $700 to $10,000. And one of the ways that I learned to have the conversation with clients when we would have guys who would come in and say, why would anybody spend $10,000 on a suit? Is that more than anything else, you're paying for the time that goes into creating this kind of garment. And then the second thing is you're paying for the scarcity, whether that's the scarcity of like how many are actually made or the scarcity of the material. Because you can look at something like there's a material, I mean, we talk about cashmere and wool or anything else, but there's a material called vicuña, and it's from an animal called a vicuña, which they're based out in South America. Highly, highly regulated. How many of these animals you can actually like harvest the fur from and things like that. And it's softer than cashmere, but it wears cooler and it's more durable. And so for men who are interested in that, and they function within the tribe where vicuña is valuable, and they value the tactical or like the tactile function of it and the durability of it, a $10,000 suit, totally worth it. To somebody else, not at all. Right. But when you get into other places where, because there are some brands, I would pay $400 for a pair of jeans. Absolutely. There's a company out there called Drakes of London that they do them, and it's Japanese selvage denim, and the cut on them is perfect, and the time that goes into all of it, and for me, that's worth it. But when you're paying $400 for a pair of Ed Hardy jeans, just because they say Ed Hardy on them, that's a whole different ballgame.
And how much of that is you're buying into a tribe?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's your cover charge for a club.
Or have jeans made for you.
Yeah.
For
that's another
$1,500 or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, do it custom and go that route and reap all those other advantages, as opposed to just buying to wear another man's name and live a mediated life through his accomplishments. Yeah. You know, you're piggybacking off of this other man.
Well, here's something I wanted to ask you. Now, I've attracted an interesting bunch of women, and when you get older, you attract, like, I'm a normal guy and not a perv. I don't look, people would say, look at that, like guys my age, you know, look at a 25-year-old girl and drool or make some comment. I'm like, that could be your fucking daughter, dude. Come on. You know what I mean? Like, I don't look at, to me, there's like a threshold. I don't like, you don't go on a dating site and like lower the age down to like, lower the age of what you're looking for down to 21. For a guy that's almost 60 years old, for me, people say, don't you want like a young, and women always say this. They go, he left me for a younger woman, or are you like the rest of the guys that are just interested in younger women? I'm like, no. I want a peer. I want someone who listened to the same music I listen to. I don't want a chick who grew up in a different generation that I got to teach her. I don't want to daddy her. I don't want to have to, show her anything. I want us to appreciate each other. I would love a woman my age who looks great for her age. Yeah. I don't care if she looks young, like look young for your age. I don't care about that. I want you to look good for your age. Period.
Yes.
That's different than looking young.
Right.
So. Just rock what you have.
Right.
But I find that when I went gray, it makes me appear a little bit older. When I'm dressed a certain way, I come across more older. And I've attracted some gray hair, like there's this weird movement amongst a certain population. Are you familiar with Iris Apfel? She's an interior designer who designed many of the rooms in the White House over 50 years. I think Iris is close to 100 now. She lives in New York City. She's one of those eclectic ladies that, thrifts, like nothing matches.
Right.
The big round, you'd know her if you see her. Right. She's iconic.
Big black rim.
Big black, you know what I mean? And thousands of like...
Yeah, stacked bracelets and everything.
Just,
and then they're thick. They're not tiny. It's not like tiny.
Yes.
They're massive.
Now she's been dressing. She was the first woman in America to wear jeans.
Oh, okay.
That was a big deal.
Yeah.
So, like, talk about being ahead of your time.
Yeah.
That doesn't resonate with a lot of people. You would understand that.
Right.
Now there's a lot of these embellishing women. It's kind of
like
interesting.
boho type stuff.
This
and-
total boho kind of thing that actually lived through many phases and went, and never got rid of anything, and they're just basically wearing stuff that they've worn for. And it's kind of interesting. Like, and I'm attracting a lot of these people, and the whole concept of just like my thing is this. I when I was married, I would get dressed like I have a female roommate right now,
Okay.
so I have some female feedback in my life on a daily basis. I did this when I was married, and I do this with my roommate. I'll get dressed in the morning, and she might be in the kitchen. I come downstairs and I go, "Does this match?" And she goes, "No." I'm like, "Good." So that way it was like a green light for me to wear it to work, because where I was working, when I had the big beard, I could just boho out,
I bet.
and it worked in my favor. But I noticed that when I took the beard off, the big beard off, boho did not work for me.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So now I got to go back to fitted. I started working. It's weird too. I started working out more.
Isn't that interesting?
You know.
Your beard changed and everything else.
Everything else
goes with
changed.
it, right?
I mean, I couldn't even see my chest or belly when I had the beard. Now I can. I'm like, shit, I got to do some sit-ups.
The beard hug.
Is there a female or a male version of these boho women? And for those that are listening, that just means bohemian, eclectic style.
There is, and I think one of the best examples of that is somebody like Johnny Depp, where you see, he's got kind of the wispy Three Musketeers mustache and goatee thing, the big fedora, the stacked bracelets, the different like Native American jewelry and all these other things, and it's all about even Goldman, who was here at this event, where he's wearing chambray shirts and he's got on a felt fedora, but then he's got on a necklace that's ayahuasca, and he's got tiger's eye rocks in his bracelets, and these are men who are kind of vagabonds, and they gather stories and then they tell their stories through their clothing, and they very much live that bohemian. My purpose in life is to experience and to grow and to do, as opposed to settle down and do those kinds of things. So absolutely, yeah, there's absolutely that. What's interesting though is there's also like the Urban Outfitters, contrived version of that is just like, you buy it at the mall and it looks, that's what most hipsters are, is you buy it at the mall and there's nothing really behind it, and you can tell the difference between somebody who has, a scoop neck kind of ratty t-shirt that they picked up from Forever 21 and it was pre-designed that way, versus somebody who has one that was picked up while they were on a fishing trip in Costa Rica, and the holes and the rattiness come from the fact that this guy's a little bit gross and that's the only shirt he's worn for the last month. And whether you embrace that or not, there's absolutely that component there, and it's that version of authenticity versus contrivance, that you're buying fashion versus developing style, because it's actually part of what you've done throughout your whole life.
Well, I was going to ask you about Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs. Yeah. Mike Rowe's his reaction to the ripped jeans with the mud on them was, he goes, "If you want ripped jeans with mud on them, go dig a ditch for a day."
Exactly.
That's his thing.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's interesting watching him on talk shows now. He's got like the ratty jeans on, and I'm wondering, are they really ratty, or did somebody ratty them up for him? You know what I mean?
Right.
He's got the T-shirt, the baseball, like the John Deere baseball cap kind of thing. And this is a guy that used to sell diamonds on QVC,
right?
Which is interesting. But I would love, and he's coming out with he's pushing the trades, which I
awesome.
love.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. I would love to see him here next year.
Yeah.
Be on stage. Mike Rowe would be awesome.
Yeah.
But for me, I think he's masculine. I think he exudes manhood. And if I saw him in a suit, like if he came to this next year, Mike Rowe, if you're listening, we'd love to have you here. I will private message you, and don't worry, my man, I'll hook you up. So if he came here, I don't think he would be in a suit.
No, shouldn't be.
No, shouldn't. Not at all.
But that also doesn't mean that he shows up in holy jeans, with with a John Deere cap and
looked like he
worked
t-shirt. In dug ditches all day.
So there's a way to be able to dress in a way that's appropriate for the environment and the event,
yes,
but it's still congruent with who he is and the way in which he interacts with the
world.
Yeah,
right.
And so maybe it's something just as simple as wearing a pair of like Duluth Trading Co. or Carhartt pants, and then he's got on a button-up shirt that is in a material that's traditionally more rugged, so a chambray or a denim or a flannel or something else, and then maybe rather than it being a sport coat, it's something like a chore coat or a barn coat or something else like that. And then he wears that while he's presenting, and then when he's out mingling with everybody else, because it's Florida, you ditch the coat. And then, and so he can do it in a way that's still very much like blue collar and will be seen and recognized as he is one of us by the blue collar tribe, but is still appropriate for where he is and what it is that he's actually doing.
Guys, I hate to do this, I really do. We have extended our time. Love to have you guys back, continue this again.
Awesome.
Last parting thoughts, where can we find you? The Gray Bailey?
Gray Bailey YouTube channel and GeorgeBruno.com.
And what can our viewers do to support you?
Subscribe, like, and share.
They're fantastic.
The YouTube mantra.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
Awesome. So you can find most of my stuff at masculine-style.com. I'm also on YouTube and Instagram and Twitter. You can look me up on all of those. It's at Tanner Guzy, which is TANNERGUZY. And the best way to support me, along with like, subscribe, and share, is I've got a book coming out. It's talking all about the philosophical and sociological relationship between masculinity and aesthetics. And so when that is available, I would love to have you guys pick that up, and it will change your whole perception on clothing.
I'll be looking forward to that personally. I really will be. This is Tanner Guzy, George Bruno, Socrates signing off for 21 Radio. Thank you for joining us.